Hey, what's up? I'm here with Jesse Ohliger, who is founder, inventor of the Breath Belt, which I know you've seen quite a bit on social media. And we've been in contact at least a couple years now about how to both better understand, better position, but sell. You're an entrepreneur. We're identifying a gap, and it's okay to ask people for money to solve their problems. And the Breath Belt, I think, can do that, but hasn't been going the way you want. Fair enough?
Yeah, recently. The product's great, the value continues to improve, but there's always, in any inventory business, there's always funding issues. Yeah. And sometimes just getting the right partners, it just takes it to where you want to go.
And myself and others, and because from some of the things that we're going to talk about that I don't think people always know, we try to help and we get there, and there's ebbs and flows. But what I want to be able to do is actually demonstrate that there's a human being behind this belt. And sometimes I think when people see the human level, there's a little bit more affinity.
Yeah.
So I've already unveiled the curtain here, what we're trying to accomplish. We're gonna start with something that's very, very overt, but I think is gonna allow people to connect and maybe relate in some way. Is that, yeah, we've talked about entrepreneur. We think there's a problem in the market and we're trying to make money. But how you got here, part of identifying that gap was that you played in the NFL.
Yeah.
So punter, so that you're still a kid, still a football player.
Punter, kickoff specialist. Yeah, yeah. I used to play real positions in high school, but Delaware is a very small place. Yeah, I went to University of Miami in 1999, and
let's put some context to that first. So you played at the U. What are some of the big names that were your teammates in '99? I can probably come up with them already, but
it was that 2001 championship team.
Name some names that were your teammates.
So Hall of Famer Andre Johnson just got in.
Yeah, wide receiver.
Clinton Portis, Najee Davenport. Vern Carey, Brian McKinney, Santana Moss. There's Sean Taylor.
Give me at least one story. Don't name the guy, but give me something, because obviously Miami is known for lots of things. I've got some story. Here, I'll start off. Any of us that lived through any of the ESPN 30/30s, it is the most riveting television. The music, the everything that they do on those 30 for 30s. If you lived through it, I can remember the Duke lacrosse.
Yeah.
Not only did we live through it and you remember what was happening, but for me, I have had, doesn't matter which one of the main young men that went through all of that, I had one of their parents as a patient, because Long Island, New York City, that's lacrosse country. And obviously, New York City, Long Island, kids playing at Duke lacrosse is not a weird thing. So I have this extra connection, and that's what I want. I want to be able to do. It could create a connection, because I was watching that. I remember it started at 9 p.m. and I felt like I was watching something for like 2.5 hours, and it was 9:22.
Yeah.
And that's, now I get to that. When I was watching, there's 2 ones on Miami, and it's way before your time.
I'm in the second one.
The second one is...
For a blip.
So
I'm in there.
On the first one, having been in the NBA, and I don't know how much Bill Ferran would be, loose, but Bill Ferran was the first strength and conditioning coach with the Heat, which I'm guessing was '88. So right before that was the whole 2 Live Crew type of era, which the first Miami or the U 30 for 30.
Yeah, the basketball team was playing the Omni back then.
Okay, so I don't remember. I can't even think of anybody that came out of Miami, for basketball, even though I know there's a couple.
James Jones. Probably.
Okay, all right. That's like I said, I can't think of anybody, even though James Jones, he's a GM now, right? Yeah. So and he was always a stud. Anybody that plays on the Heat is fit. They're all monsters. But getting back to my Miami story, that there was obviously a time there where things that happened in the weight room in terms of nutrition and supplementation were very, very liberal, very, very aggressive. And I'm watching this, and several years before that, I had met Dr. Pat Jacobs. Mm-hmm. And then I put it all together, like here's a guy that is an incredible researcher in sports performance supplementation. That's where it all, oh my God, that's like, and then I asked Bill, and he's like, obviously nobody's saying anything that incriminates anybody, but he's like, yeah, Vinny Testaverde would work out with the linemen, and which, again, if people don't know, this was now a 6'5", 260 quarterback. It's still pretty big,
Yeah.
but to me it's very believable that Vinny Testaverde would have worked out with the linemen. All of the, that's Jimmy Johnson, and the only Jimmy Johnson, the only thing I'm consistent about is that I treat everybody differently. And whether that was from the Cowboys or the stuff at Miami, so that, without naming names here, give me something that would make people be like, wow, that's pretty interesting, or that's pretty cool.
I don't think a lot of people knew that Ed Reed was a javelin champion.
Okay, all right.
And
much less salacious than what I'm alluding
Yeah,
to
okay.
from Dr. Pat Jacobs.
Because there's so many parts. As far as that, so obviously can't name names, but I feel like I know a lot of guys on the team. I've known them for years. At the time, I feel like there was only 3 or 4 guys confirmed that were doing PEDs. I was naive. I came from a very small private school in Delaware, so I know it was a whole nother world for me. But I was there for summer, and you'd notice within 4 weeks, you're like, that guy gained 20 pounds in 4 weeks. And so I was just super naive at the time, but I didn't think, just from being there for a couple of years, I didn't think there was a big percentage. Like you always hear people say, half the team's on this or that. And I really only think 3 or 4 guys were.
And look, the era that I'm talking about, which is like the middle 80s, is a significantly different time in every level than late 90s or early 2000s. So,
but some things that did come across is, at the time I was like getting into we don't have to go deep into kicking and punting culture, but a lot of kickers, they're coaches when they're 19 or 20. So you're coaching high school guys. And I started coaching down here in the off season and stuff, and I would hear stories. I'm like, all these high school football players are getting kicked off the team for selling steroids. And I'm like, I never even saw that in Delaware. And then like,
and this is still in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s. But like the Fort Lauderdale sports culture is just nuts.
No question.
It's nuts.
And so I went through my biggest time in powerlifting. When I tell the story, what the things that I accomplished, which didn't suck, but I was clean my whole. When you say lifetime. Like lifetimes means you never took any. You're clean at the moment, and you never took anything. So I'm sure people lie because there's no way to know. But nobody really cares if you're a world record holder in lifetime. And by the way, I did not expect PEDs to be the. I think it's more interested in Ed Reed throwing javelin. But so when I went elite in a meet, I went for, I think it was 800, 515, and 605. And I was clean. Now, obviously that's equipped. I don't know if people always know, anybody who's an equipped lifter never bangs on raw lifters. At no point could I ever have squatted 800 pounds without assisted equipment, okay? But I do have a video of ass to grass at 595. I was always around 200 pounds. But when you wore gear at that time, there was certain brands and unlimited, meaning sometimes there's assisted gear that's only 1 ply, and then there could be unlimited. So where I was, because I always competed at the highest level, it's just what I wanted to do, and it wasn't, and you kind of fall off the pyramid at a certain point. And
were you one of the guys tucking your bench shirts in at night?
I don't even know what that means, so no.
I just heard they had special bench shirts.
Yeah, so I used a Karen double denim. You jack it up, and again, I don't think I was about to say 600 pounds, because in the gym, not in a meet, in a gym, I benched 595 with the shirt. So I wore 3 ply when everybody else was wearing 4. Like if you had the best equipment, and it's not like I just didn't do it because I wasn't that committed as other people. I wasn't committed in taking steroids. I wasn't committed even in training. I was a strength coach in the NBA. I wasn't gonna like give up this, and start to do things. But the other thing until recently, and I smirk because no one really thinks about it, but then people that really understand lifting and leverage, etc. Most people that are 5'4.5" might have like a size 9 shoe, or like okay, I have a size 7. to be able to, like you're balancing this whole business with 800 pounds on a 200-pound frame. So it's, you're balancing 1,000 pounds on a size 7 foot.
Yeah.
So that would be, my powerlifting glory, where that's my Al Bundy.
Crazy numbers.
But now, getting back to the football, you went on to the NFL.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So I wasn't drafted. I went to Miami for 3 years, and then the last 2 years, you can transfer down. This is long before NIL. So I went to a school called Murray State to play more, and did all three: the kickoff specialist, punter, and kicker. And then I was picked up by the Rams right out. So I didn't have like a long career, but I was signed by 5 or 6 teams, and it was great. It was a great 3 years. A lot of cups of coffee, and probably made more money on the injury settlement than I did from paychecks.
Yeah. What was the injury? You allowed to talk about that?
Yeah. So I tore common kicking injury. Tore a quad, but I actually tore my pectineus, and I didn't even know what that was till I was older. It's like a piriformis of the front.
Yeah, it's a little guy in the front. It's a groin muscle.
So I had like an avulsion, and just a lot of these injuries led to later became the breath belt.
Yeah. Now that's why I asked to see if there was a link, and that's your kicking leg or your plant leg.
Kicking leg, and I still have to this day my left leg's healthy as ever. I got that good pattern on the left side. But that's what kind of like the story was. After I went up to Canada, but I failed a physical, so I couldn't do that. And then kind of you just miss moving. You go back to sagittal lifts, and all the compensation patterns are exposed. And that was kind of like the beginning of the journey. But all of a sudden, my body just started falling apart, and started with chronic hip and low back pain. Then it was insomnia for 7-8 years, just could not get a full night's sleep, and just using that to dig into the body. But I was always coaching, so I was always, kicking and punting is a very specific thing. I've gotten hundreds of guys scholarships, tens of millions of dollars of scholarships over the years. Some guys are still playing on TV from my little camp in the NFL right now.
So what's the camp? I didn't know you had this.
At the time, my group started what was called one-on-one kicking, and at the time there was no kicking coaches. Like when I was in high school, I'd get a mailer. Before, internet was just starting. I would get a mailer. I had a supportive father, and he would just send me to he's like, hey, go to Nevada for spring break. Go to Columbus, Ohio, or some random small D3 school. And you just have some 80-year-old
Mount Union.
Yeah, have some 80-year-old dude, film 3 steps, and that's what you work on. But there's so many flaws in that system, but that's the best we had at the time.
Yeah.
And so really, it's finally coming together now. At the time, there was nothing. So we created we just called it church. So you meet every other Sunday, kick for 2 hours, and it's just
I'll tell you the real reason I'm asking is, and you see, I asked which leg. A lot of times, especially when we get into talking about the breath belt, that's a foundational adaptation. We're attacking something that's at the foundation of this human that's kicking a football. Its foundation is fitness, meaning, what do we know about this, to create this solution? But then third is the technical component, because somebody could have awesome foundational, competencies, all mobility, stability, everything's elite on many different ways to measure it. And then their fitness can be fantastic. Really what that means is the unique type of work capacity. The 10th kick is just as powerful, but also the same strategy. Meaning you're doing what you try to do and your fitness is not getting in the way. Clearly, there are certain sports, some of the ones that I'm closest to, where we're not really better at the sport. Shooting a basketball and golf come to mind. We're not better. Golfers hit the ball farther, but then they just make the courses longer to even it out. But we're not the precision of hitting a golf ball in the hole over 18 holes. We're really not better at that. And in basketball, nobody's as far as away from the basket, the skill. And I think it's because not just being fatigued in an acute situation, but rather being under-recovered. Under-recovery can be from putting up this mysterious 500 shots per day. It can be from the relative void of fitness, athletic development in golf. So if we're under-recovered, it doesn't mean, and really what I'm alluding to, we could see a player shoot a 62 and then a 75 the next day. They didn't forget. It's the same exact course on Thursday to Friday. There's nothing different or unique. but then they don't put the ball where they want to do it. Well, why? Like, it's not because golf is hard, it's because they're under recovered in some way. That doesn't mean they didn't sleep well the night before. It's this big, unique, series of things. But that's why I asked, though, on this injury piece, on, were you ever coached not how to kick the ball far, not how to kick the ball with spin, not how to put it in the corner, but from a basic technical level of somebody that understood what I'm talking about? Because I don't know how to kick a football.
Yes, but at the very basic, I went to Miami to play. At the time, they were #1 in baseball. So I actually went there to play baseball. I just ended up starting as a freshman injured. So, lifetime rotational athlete. I think a lot of these compensation patterns were there, but that's when the Olympic lift, all we did was Olympic lifting. You have no idea what's going on, but you're young, you got testosterone, everybody's doing it. And I didn't realize until I was older, it was like, oh, these guys are freak athletes. Because they were such good athletes, they just survived those Olympic workouts.
Yeah.
The compensation patterns weren't fixed before they learned how to live Olympic lift. So I believe a lot of that stuff, because it was so sagittal, and still it's pretty sagittal today, even at the highest level.
I would say, I don't think, if you take a unilateral or a rotational athlete and their fundamentals and their foundations are maintained, and we're looking at Olympic lifting or sagittal lifting as a vehicle to put stuff inside the body, if that's how things are programmed and that's the attention to detail, I don't think it's a problem. I think if you show up to sagittal lifting with these issues, I don't think they do. If you have all the fundamentals, these things are coached well, I don't think it's a big deal. Now, I don't think that has to happen all the time. So I'm not in the camp that you should only do this because of this. That's your choice as a coach. Now, on the flip of that, not really on the flip, but as an adjunct, is there a better way?
Yeah.
And
I think we were just, to this day, they're still deloading properly. They're not, we were just overloaded in exercises we never practiced ever even saw in high school.
We've done this with some people, and for whatever reason over the last couple of years I just haven't had the volume to do this. Single leg Olympic lifts. It looks crazy.
Yeah.
It looks weak, but think of what the lower body is doing in the Olympic lift. Well, just do it with one leg.
Yeah.
It's a single leg RDL. That's fine. You don't want to do that. You set up. You can set up a landmine to do it. There's all these different strategies, and then you could do a single leg hop, which is after you get the bar to the power position. And we've done that, especially when we've had some long-term knee types or lower body injuries. There's always a way. I just don't know that. Number one, the keen ability to actually identify the foundation. That if somebody who's really, really good at coaching Olympic lifting and making relatively young athletes, so I'm talking about the college level, they're really, really good at coaching that strategy. They don't even give a rat's ass about these other things. And if they do, they're just checking a box.
And there was no position specificity back then, so everybody just does the same workout and that's it.
Well, that's why I said when Testaverde is training with the linemen. And again, this is one of the greatest of all time, but he did tear his Achilles walking backward. A 3-step drop for him was like a 3-step plod. Yeah. But anyway, when you got hurt in the league, did you stay with the team? Did they send you home? How did that go?
I got cut. That was with the Ravens when it happened. I believe, it's years later, so I believe it happened a year before. I probably had it in, it probably started in high school because I remember seeing a hole in my quad in high school, but you grow on so fast. Sometimes refer as chronic pain, I guess. So you just keep on going, you never stop. So that I was just cut, and then I had the option to go through the rehab and then take it to a settlement court. I forget exactly what they call it, but anyway.
It's a settlement.
Yeah.
When players you have to agree to get cut when you're hurt. It's part of the settlement. You can't lose your job because you're injured on the job. So there's strategies that are.
I got let go. I was never on injured reserve because I was but I was also probably playing injured at the time. So I never got the off season. I wasn't there for a whole season, just getting rehab and getting paid. Yeah. So just the court process.
No, because obviously that's a big part of my 12-month situation. It's more common that I'm working for the players individually, but there are times where the team will use me as a consultant, which is extra set of hands, which is totally cool. But there's a big world, and everyone's a little bit different. Obviously, when you're the star player, you're a big time guy versus somebody that's closer to 53. Those situations are all very, very different.
And I'm sure it's more specific, you work with individual basketball players, but even today, like, not naming the teams, but I was fortunate because I was a journeyman to be part of 7 or 10 facilities, just see how they're run. And to this day, I mean, this is literally 20 years later, some of these teams have the same athletic trainers, same rehab. They're probably getting paid the same, but the player's salary goes up. And I'm just like, why?
We're here to talk about you, not me. I mean, that's and that's a topic that you're gonna have to throw 10 vodka down my throat to get the truth serum out, because what I will say is that certainly that's the case, and I don't think it's ideal. But a big thing that I know people hear me say a lot, especially recently, multiple things can be true. 5 things can be true, and they can all be antagonistic on the surface.